Hello and welcome! Today, we're diving deep into the vibrant, tumultuous, and utterly captivating world of one of history's most iconic artists, Frida Kahlo. More than just a painter, Frida was a force of nature, a woman who transformed immense pain into breathtaking art, and whose life story is as compelling as any of her canvases. Her unibrow, her traditional Tuana dresses, her unflinching gaze, they all tell a story of defiance, passion, and an unbreakable spirit. So, let's peel back the layers and discover the woman behind the legend. Magdalena Carmen Frida Kahlo y Calderon was born on July 6, 1907, in Cayucan, a neighborhood of Mexico City. Although she was born in 1907, Frida would later claim 1910 as her birth year. Why? Because 1910 was the year the Mexican Revolution began, and she wanted her life to be intrinsically linked with the birth of modern Mexico. This small act of defiance tells you so much about her character. She was the daughter of a German photographer, Guillermo Kahlo, and a mestiza mother, Matilde Calderon y González. From her father, she inherited a love for detail and precision, often assisting him in his photography's dark room. From her mother, she was immersed in the rich tapestry of Mexican culture and Catholic faith. Though she herself would later become an atheist, Frida's life was marked by physical suffering from a very young age. At just 6 years old, she contracted polio, which left her right leg thinner and shorter than her left. This led to a permanent limp and earned her the cruel childhood nickname Frida Pata de Palo or Peglat. Frida, to hide this, she would later wear long, beautiful, traditional Mexican skirts, which became a signature part of her iconic style. But this early battle was just a prelude to the devastating event that would change the course of her life forever. On September 17, 1925, an 18-year-old Frida was riding a bus when it collided with a streetcar. The accident was horrific. A steel handrail impaled her through the hip, fracturing her spine in 3 places, shattering her collarbone, and breaking her right leg in 11 places. Her right foot was crushed and her shoulder dislocated. Doctors didn't think she would survive. She spent a month in the hospital and was then confined to her bed for months, encased in a full-body plaster cast. It was during this agonizing period of immobility that her artistic journey truly began. Her mother had a special easel made that allowed her to paint while lying down, and her father lent her his box of oil paints. A mirror was placed above her bed, and with nothing else to look at, Frida became her own primary subject. "I paint myself because I am so often alone," she famously said, "and because I am the subject, I know best." This was the birth of her legendaries. Unlike many artists who idealize their own image, Frida was brutally honest. She painted her pain, her reality, her unfiltered self. She painted her prominent unibrow and faint mustache, not as flaws to be hidden, but as defiant symbols of her identity. Her early works, like Self-Portrait in a Velvet Dress, show a more traditional, European-influenced style, but as she developed, her art became a raw, surreal, and deeply personal exploration of her physical and emotional suffering. 2 years after the accident, Frida was able to walk again, though she would live with chronic pain for the rest of her life, undergoing over 30 operations. It was around this time she reconnected with the man who would become the other great, tumultuous force in her life. Diego Rivera. Rivera was already a giant in the Mexican art world, famous for his large-scale murals. Frida, bold and determined, approached him with her paintings, seeking his professional opinion. He was immediately captivated, not just by her art, but by her fiery spirit and intelligence. "Your work is unique," he told her, recognizing a talent that was unlike anything he had seen. Their connection was immediate and intense. They married in 1929. Despite her mother's disapproval, she famously described their union as a marriage between an elephant and a dove, referring to their significant size difference. Their relationship was a whirlwind of passion, mutual admiration, infidelity, and heartbreak. They were intellectual partners who fueled each other as creativity and shared a deep love for Mexico and communist politics. But their marriage was far from conventional. Both had numerous affairs. Diego's affair with Frida's own sister, Cristina, was a particularly devastating blow, leading to their divorce in 1939. This period of separation produced some of Frida's most powerful and emotionally charged work. The two Fridas painted in 1939, is a masterpiece of this era. It depicts two identical Fridas sitting side. One is the Frida Diego loved, dressed in traditional Tehuana attire, holding a small portrait of him, her heart whole. The other is the Frida he abandoned in a European steel dress, her heart torn open and bleeding. An artery connects the two hearts, but the unloved Frida is cutting it with surgical scissors, blood staining her white dress. It's a visceral depiction of heartbreak and a split identity. Yet, their story wasn't over. A year after their divorce, they couldn't stay apart. They remarried in 1940 and remained together until Frida's death. Though their relationship continued to be turbulent, through it all, her art remained her truest form of expression. Paintings like the broken column show her body literally shattered, held together by a crumbling architectural column and pierced by nails, a direct representation of her lifelong physical agony. In Henry Ford Hospital, she depicts herself hemorrhaging on a hospital bed after a miscarriage, a rough and honest portrayal of a profound personal tragedy that was rarely, if ever, depicted in art at that time. While many associated her with Surrealism, the movement's founder, André Breton, even called her a natural surrealist, Frida rejected the label. She insisted, "I never painted dreams. I painted my own reality," and that's the key to understanding her work. It wasn't about fantasy. It was about translating her lived experience, her pain, her joy, her Mexican identity onto the canvas with unflinching honesty. She wove in symbols from Mexican folklore, pre-Columbian mythology, and Catholic iconography, creating a visual language that was entirely her own. As the years went on, her health continued to decline. She spent her later years often confined to her home, La Casa Azul, or Tibu House, in Coyoacan. This house, where she was born and where she would die, was her sanctuary and a work of art in itself, filled with folk art, vibrant colors, and lush gardens. Despite her failing body, her spirit remained fierce. In 1953, she was given her first solo exhibition in Mexico. Doctors told her she was too ill to attend, but Frida was not one to miss her own party. She arrived in an ambulance, was carried in on a stretcher, and placed in a four-poster bed set up in the center of the gallery. She spent the evening talking, laughing, and singing with the guests from her bed. It was a perfect display of her indomitable will. A few months later, her right leg had to be amputated below the knee due to gangrene. This plunged her into a deep depression, yet she still found the will to paint. One of her last paintings, Viva la Vida, Watermelons, is a vibrant still life of juicy, sliced watermelons. On one of the slices, she inscribed the words, "Viva la vida, long live life." It's an incredibly powerful final statement from a woman who endured so much suffering, a testament to her enduring love for life itself. Frida Kahlo died on July 13, 1954, just a week after her 47th birthday. The official cause was a pulmonary embolism, though some speculate it was an intentional overdose. Her last diary entry read, "I hope the exit is joyful and I hope never to return." In her lifetime, Frida was largely known as Diego Rivera's wife, but in the decades since her death, her star has eclipsed his. She has become a global icon, a feminist symbol, a queer icon, a fashion muse, and a beacon of resilience for people everywhere. Her face is one of the most recognizable in art history, and her story continues to inspire millions. She taught us that our wounds can be a source of strength, that vulnerability is a form of power, and that the most personal stories can have the most universal appeal. Frida Kahlo didn't just paint her life, she lived her art. And in doing so, she created a legacy that is, just like her final painting declared, full of life. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the world of Frida Kahlo. If you found this story as inspiring as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe for more stories about incredible figures from history, and let me know in the comments which artists you'd like to see covered next. See you in the next video.